It was very late. Neil set off on his bike to go home. He had just gotten this new job a few days ago. Working sometimes day shifts and sometimes night shifts, he would get very tired. It was approximately 1 in the morning when Neil had departed from the office. Numerous individuals who had completed their night shifts were observed making their way towards the highway. Neil also joined them. But from the highway, their paths diverged. Everyone went their separate ways. He left on the bike too. In just a short while, Neil reached the highway. It was extremely late at night, so the traffic was consequently quite light. He had absolutely no control over his speed. Only occasionally did she see a car coming from the opposite direction, or it would overtake. Just a moment ago, he departed from the main highway and proceeded onto a dirt road. That particular road was even more deserted. Currently, solely the dimly lit road was visible in the motorcycle's headlight. Just like a lengthy black snake. In the deep darkness of the night, that profound silence felt absolutely terrifying. But there was no other option. If you need a job, you must be open to working rotational shifts. He drove, lost in thought. Due to the deserted and empty road, Neil was driving directly in the center of the road. In just a little while, his loneliness will be gone. The horn of a car approaching from behind could be heard. He shifted for the car. In just a brief moment, a couple riding on a bicycle overtook him and proceeded ahead. Maybe they're a married couple. But one thing caught Neil's attention. The woman who was seated at the back of the bike was elegantly dressed in a traditional sari, and her palu was hanging dangerously close to the rear wheel. With a sudden gust of wind, it might become entangled in the bike's wheel at any moment. And if that end got caught, who knows what disaster could have happened. Neil sped up the bike, and while overtaking that bike, he said, "Madam, your scarf could potentially become entangled in the wheel." Upon articulating this, Neil continued onward. Neil experienced a profound sense of relief that I indeed did so. Provided support to an individual, as these kinds of videos are frequently seen on various social media platforms in recent times. A young girl is comfortably seated on a bicycle and her scarf has unfortunately become entangled in the wheel of the bicycle. Both individuals fell to the ground and sustained injuries. Neil was deeply engrossed in his thoughts when, quite unexpectedly, that very same cyclist proceeded ahead once more. But what is this? Where did his wife go? She wasn't there. Where is she? Neil accelerated the vehicle. Inquired, "Hey, where did your wife, who was sitting behind you, go?" Her scarf almost got caught in the bike wheel. So I explained to them in detail that motorcyclists skillfully maneuvered to the side of the road. By the way, Neil also parked his bike next to it. Neil inquired, "Could you please tell me what happened, sir? Is it concerning your wife? She was seated in the back, correct?" The entire body of that biker started trembling with fear. He did not speak a single word. He simply turned around with eyes filled with dread. So the path seemed even more frightening. Neil told him, "What transpired? Why do you appear so frightened?" He kept staring at Neil. And then he asked, "Did you happen to notice who was riding on my motorcycle?" "What do you mean?" "You don't know him." "I was returning to my home from work all by myself. And I didn't give anyone a lift either." Listening to his words made Neil's hair stand on end. So they exchanged glances. As they collectively turned their gaze back, they observed a shadowy silhouette lurking ominously in the depths of the night. Upon catching sight of it, their eyes widened with intense fear. Their hearts commenced pounding with intense force and resounding loudly. Just then, the bike in front honked. It felt as though both of them had completely ceased breathing altogether. They quickly started the motorcycle and proceeded towards their home at an accelerated speed. Neil finally got home. It was exactly 2 a.m. He reclined on his bed. However, he was unable to fall asleep. Throughout his entire career, he did this thing. I saw it for the first time. The same thought kept coming to his mind repeatedly. Was what I observed actually real? How many times had he passed that same road? But until today, he had never had such a terrifying experience. The woman who was seated on the motorcycle, adorned in her vibrant red sari. How could this be possible? But this was entirely real. Even the drapes of my window now resembled the palu of that woman in the vibrant red sari. It felt as though someone was continuously and persistently calling out his name repeatedly. He was now even afraid to look towards the window. Whenever the curtain moved slightly, it brought back memories of everything. He stood up and firmly closed the window. As soon as he turned around, the woman suddenly leaped onto Neil. Neil let out a terrified scream. It turned out to be a dream. Neil thought, I am overanalyzing everything, and then I drifted off to sleep. Neil didn't go to work for 2 days. But how many days was he going to do that? On the 3rd day, he went to work. But his attention was not on work. He kept looking at the clock repeatedly. It's 12:30. The shift is over. He sat on his bike. But were his feet in pain? Lost in deep contemplation, he didn't even become aware of the moment when he departed from the highway and transitioned onto the uneven road. Now he started feeling more scared. He started recalling all. A car horn was heard from behind. Neil's hair stood up on end. Could that woman be sitting behind that man again? Will I encounter her once more? Only her heartbeat was perceptible to her ears. The body was completely drenched in sweat. The other bicycle began attempting to advance forward. Neil thought, I will not look back at him at all. Ultimately, however, he did turn to look back. There was absolutely no one following him. Neil took a deep breath one night. He experienced a sense of relief. The fear that resided in his heart was now completely gone. Neil looked towards the person on the bike and gave a slight smile. Consequently, the motorcyclist elevated the visor of his protective helmet. And he mentioned, kindly inform the lady that her scarf could potentially become entangled in the wheel.